Welcome to today's webinar, How to Lead Thriving Teams in a Blended Work Environment. My name is Eric Anderton, and my company is Construction Genius. And today you have made a good decision to spend some time with me here for the next 60 to 75 minutes. The last few months have been super challenging for many of us. We hear stories all the time of the various challenges that people have as Zoom calls, both technical and personal. And today is an opportunity for you to rise above all of the challenges that you might be facing at the moment. And like I said, for the next 60 to 75 minutes, I'd like you to consider this time as your oasis. Let's just begin with a bit of thoughtfulness here. All human unhappiness comes from not facing reality squarely, exactly as it is. A little bit of wisdom here from the Buddha. Think about 2004 through 2007. For those of you who were in the business at that point, everybody was a genius, right? We remember those days. Then 2008 through 2012, everybody got stupid all of a sudden. And then from 2013 through 2019, everyone was doing really, really well, okay? And then we hit 2020 and it seemed like things were gonna go on forever. Everything was awesome. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, relatively speaking, the COVID hits. And man, I really love this about construction companies and construction professionals. The industry, you guys are a resilient bunch. I have deep respect for each and every one of you who own a business here, who are leaders in a business. I have such deep respect that you guys are in this to win for the long term. And whether we have a variety of different challenges, whatever the case is, you guys are here to get better. You guys are here to stick around. And I know that we're going to get through all of these challenges and get out on the other side better. And I just want to give you this encouragement. This is a quote from Epictetus, who is a Stoic philosopher. The true man is revealed in difficult times. So when trouble comes, think of yourself as a wrestler whom God, like a trainer, has paired with a tough young buck. For what purpose? To turn you into Olympic class material. And at this point, I hope that you really see that the opportunity that you have through the challenges that we're currently facing to really improve your leadership, to grow as a leader, to become a better leader, to help other people become a better leader. So with that in mind, I would just like you to chat into the box here. What is your biggest win in 2020? Thank you. Matthew, lower overhead, higher profit. Justin, being profitable. Bill, my wife is in remission. That is incredible. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate you sharing that. Sean, reaching sales goals I set at the onset of the pandemic. Excellent. Transition to remote working in connection with team members. Thank you, Matthew. Excellent. Teams feel closer and tight-knit. Yes, tribulation, it can either tear people apart or it can bring them together. The best companies, they come together. That's great. Completing new builds and remodels despite everything. Thank you, Fletcher. All our employees are back to work. John, that's excellent. Maintaining staffing levels. Olin, I tell you, I know a lot of you have made sacrifices in order to maintain staffing levels. And it's encouraging that you're able to do that. Excellent. Jared, aligned with a higher powered group and been getting a lot of growth personally and in business. That is excellent. Dan, getting over COVID. Congratulations. That is great. All right. And Matt, continuing to find TIs in an empty office world. I tell you, Matt, props to you for finding those TIs. Excellent. So I'm really encouraged that there's some wins, but let's also drop the mask here just a little bit. Give me some of your biggest challenges. Morale and team connection. Yep. Thank you, Olin. Thanks for being honest there. Lisa, communication with those in and out of the office. Yep. Dan, inexperienced workers. Ryan, maintaining positivity. Justin, accountability. David, uncertainty. Yes. Kristen, a resistance to change. Figuring out which projects are real. Yeah, Sean, I find it difficult to know who's working and productive as well, who's not doing much. Yeah, past the honeymoon of working at home and employees are starting to disengage. Matthew, that's excellent. My personal feeling is this blended environment, it will maintain to some extent into 2021. I don't think it's sustainable for the long term. So hopefully by 2022, people will be back in the office, depending where you are in the United States or around the world. Obviously, your government jurisdictions and are going to have decision-making power as far as that's concerned. So this is definitely something that we've got to face head on. What's in store for 2021, as you know, is mostly unknown. I'm not here to prognosticate. We know the COVID is going to be with us. And as a result of that, you've got people working in the field, people working in the office, people working at home. So that blended work environment is not going anywhere, at least for the near future. And you cannot thrive without mastering the art of leading blended teams. So we're going to be covering 5 things in today's event. So the goal of the first part is to help you really manage your direct reports effectively by managing yourself and giving you a template for managing them so that they can juggle domestic demands with work requirements. Then we're going to be looking at your team's high performance and how you should be shifting to managing by outcomes, particularly in a remote or a blended environment, and not so much by activities. But we are going to be talking about how important activities are which lead to outcomes. So that'll be a very interesting part. Then we're going to talk about communication and how you need to improve the quality and the impact of your communication, whether in person or remotely. And my conviction is that the best construction companies are the ones that communicate the most effectively. And communication is not as easy remotely. We know that. There's lots of data and information that's lost in a remote environment. And so it requires a lot of diligence and a lot of persistence. Then we're going to talk about how you can have difficult conversations without ruining relationships, whether remotely or in person. And then we're going to spend some time talking about how to run an effective online meeting so that you can solve your toughest challenges. So let's dive right into the content of the meeting. You need to be able to help your direct reports juggle domestic demands and work requirements. And you need to be able to do that yourself. So with that in mind, I want to start off with a fundamental foundation that I teach all of my clients and that you need to really lay hold of as a construction leader and help your people with. And that is the Construction Leaders Dashboard. And so I'm going to be sending you a copy of this at the end of the session here of the Construction Leaders Dashboard, but this is very, very fundamental. So let me ask you this. Think about a telescope, a rifle, and a pot. What do these things all share in common? Kristen, yes, you nailed it. They are all tools. And that's exactly what the dashboard is. It's a tool to help you to be a better leader by getting clarity, focus, and establishing boundaries. And it's going to help your people to juggle their responsibilities by focusing in on what they need to accomplish in their leadership role and in their team role, regardless of whether they are remote or in person. Now, it's not a magic pill. The Construction Leaders Dashboard is not a magic pill. I'm not really into magic pills. I'm into clear tools and frameworks that you can use and lots of hard work, okay? So you've got to be able to use this. So let me just ask you this. What would you say is your duty as a construction leader? Jared, create culture. Thank you. Annie, communicate. Excellent. Justin, lead from the front. Setting our standards and values to live and work by. Zach, juggle chaos eloquently. I like that, Zach. That's a nice touch. Matthew, support individual efforts. Sean, develop relationships, strategic planning. Vance, good to see you, Vance. Guide a team of construction pros. Thank you. Dan, guide my team to success. Jared, manage risk. Okay, excellent. Excellent. Bill Bridges. Thank you, Fletcher. That's a good one. All right. So let me just give you three duties that you have as a leader. I'm sure you'll find these familiar. Number one, you need to increase revenues. You need to be able to increase revenues. Then you need to be able to increase efficiencies. And you need to then cut or contain costs. And you need to stay in compliance. You need to operate within the company culture on critical decisions. And you also need to stay on the right side of the governmental regulations and the law. And so with those things in mind, as far as your duty is concerned, plus the things that you've shared with me as far as how you look at it, I'd like to take a look at the top end of the construction leader's dashboard. And there's 4 things that we're going to consider here. They are your vision, your mission, your values, and your edge. And I want you to think very much in terms of you yourself as an individual, not so much in terms of your company, but you yourself as an individual leader. Okay, so let's talk about your vision. Think about where you want to be in terms of your leadership in the next 2 to 5 years. A good vision paints a brief picture of where you want to be. And why this is important is because as leaders, particularly in time of crisis, it's easy to go around with a chicken, like a chicken with your head cut off, to have a real lack of focus and to really perform at an average level. But those people who have clear vision, as a result of that clarity then leads to focus, and it really leads to excellent high performance. And one of the ways that you want to be able to help your people operate in a blended environment is to ask them, what is their vision for the next 2 to 4 years of their career? And so with that in mind, as a leader in your construction company, just give me some feedback here. What is your vision for your role and your contribution to the organization in the next, 3 to 5 years? Bill, coaching the next generation of leaders. See, that's excellent. That's an excellent vision there for the next 3 to 5 years. Olin, culture and company growth. Think about the tension there, Olin, between culture and company growth. I was chatting with one of my clients last week, and one of the challenges that happens when a company grows is maintaining that culture. Dan, help the company grow. Very good. Excellent. Think about that, Dan. Is that external growth in terms of revenue? Is it internal growth in terms of your people? It may be both. Matt, grow our PEs to be the next PM. Very good. Excellent. Fletcher, solid, efficient working team of trade partners. Okay, good. So think about the vision that you want to achieve. And then what you want to be able to do then, the next part is you want to think about the mission. This is describing the why. What difference or contribution do you want to make? What is the legacy that you want to leave behind? And the reason it's important to really define this is because there's a lot of conformity in our world. You don't have to live out necessarily the American dream. You may not ever be interested in retiring. You may want to stay in construction your whole life. Your mission may be different than the person sitting next to you. And so you don't want to be flippant or generic in the way that you describe your mission. You want something that's really specific to you, because if you don't do that, it'll really hinder you achieving excellence. And so what is it about you that makes you distinct? It's so important to understand this, because then that'll help you to be persistent amidst the challenges, particularly the types of challenges we've been facing lately, and give you strength for the journey that you're on. So what would you say is your why? What difference or contribution do you want to make? Bill, create a company with systems to ensure a more predictable net profit for the next generation. That's very specific. Thanks for sharing that, Bill. That's excellent. Create customers for life. Jared, I tell you, that is a very interesting way of looking at your business. Customers for life. I tell you, it's much easier to keep a repeat customer than to get a new one, Jared. So that's excellent. It's interesting. The vision seems to be an easier question to answer. The mission is a slightly harder one, perhaps. But again, what difference or contribution do you want to make? What gets you excited about the impact you can have in your career? It's a very important part of that foundation. And it's a great question that you want to have with people as they're working in a remote environment. This is one of the ways that you can create that dynamic team, is by getting all of them to be focused on a specific mission, both for themselves as an individual and perhaps for the whole team, because that'll help them to be motivated amidst the challenges that they have. Let's talk about values. Think about this for a moment. Things are very busy. There's lots of conflict in construction. People often feel overwhelmed and unstable. And that's why values are so very important. What are the core values that drive you? What are the ways of behaving that set you apart? You know those things where you'll put your foot down and say, no, I will not do that. I will not behave in that way. Or that get you to say, yes, I will maintain my integrity by living my life in this particular way. In times of instability, in times of challenge, the folks who really make that distinct, lasting contribution are the ones who have a core set of values that they live by. What are some of those core values that you personally live by that are helping you to go through the current crisis and challenge that you're facing at the moment? Justin, authenticity. I tell you, one of the journeys in life, thank you for sharing that, Justin. One of the journeys that we have in life is being our authentic self. You think about how you're born into the culture, your family, the society that we live in, and many times those things keep us from authenticity. But the way to be a really effective leader is to be your very best authentic self, to learn who that is, and to show up like that as often as possible. Okay, add value and transparency to every conversation. Matt, that's excellent. Matt Harrigan, integrity, yep. Collaboration, rigorous, proactive, continuous improvement. Craig, kindness, presence, that's an interesting one, presence. That's a good one, Craig. I like it when you see these sort of original ways of looking at values. Think about words that you only think about or that set you apart or distinguish you. It's really, really good. Bill's got here, I always honor God. That's excellent. I tell you, if you're going to be able to stand in these times, you've got to have a deeper foundation than just yourself or just money. There's got to be something deeper, something within you that is driving your success. So that's really excellent here. So once you've got those values established, the next part of the dashboard is your edge. And what are your unique talents that set you apart? So think about those unique qualities, attributes, gifts, strengths that you have as a professional. And one of the best ways to think about your edge is to frame it like this. Unlike others in my field, I do what? What is that edge that you have? And the reason you need to define that edge is because many times we struggle to think about who we are. And as a result of that, we're scattered and we don't reach our full potential. But the people who understand their edge, they're the ones who understand how they think, how they behave, and what they're interested in. And they put those things together to focus in on how they can maximize their impact. So what are your unique talents or qualities that set you apart? What's your edge? And don't be shy about answering this. Matthew, forward planning, excellent. Justin, identifying what can be done, very good. Dan, patience to train. I tell you, Dan, that is an excellent edge. Craig, I listen well. Craig, I tell you, this is a shout out to all you executives here. If there's one thing that you can work on, it is to listen well. That is excellent. Jared, coming from a mindset that allows us to help the client instead of what the client can do for me. Very good. Bill, tenacity. That is excellent. Okay, so think about this. This is all about your mindset, your vision, your mission, your values, and your edge. That is something that you hold within yourself. And this is something that you want to help your team with in that blended environment. So one of the exercises that you can do as a result of what you've learned today is to sit down with your leaders, either in person or remotely, whatever blended environment you're in, and ask them to go through this process in a very simple way. And one of the things that you want to encourage your team is that you're not looking for correct answers, whatever that means. You're looking for something that's true to them, that really means something to them. And this is the way you can establish your mindset. Now, this is just the first part of the Construction Leaders Dashboard. The other part of the dashboard is your metrics, your relationships, your initiatives, and your development opportunities. These are all the actions that you're going to take, and they are equally important as your mindset, but you've got to get the mindset, the top half of the dashboard, nailed so that it can then flow into the bottom half of the dashboard. And this is a very practical way for you to be able to help your people to juggle working in a blended environment with both their domestic responsibilities and their work responsibilities, because the dashboard helps them to focus very clearly on when they're working exactly what they need to execute upon. Okay, so just give me some feedback here. Raise your hands if you find the dashboard helpful here. Excellent. Okay, good. Excellent. Wonderful. Let's now get on to the next part of the workshop here. And that is all about sustaining your team's high performance by shifting to managing by outcomes and not by activities. So I'd like you to remember when you've achieved high performance, whether it's in school, whether it's in sports, whether it's in business. What caused you to achieve high performance? Just chat that into the box here for me. Justin, commitment. That's excellent. Thank you. Why did you achieve high performance? Focus. Thank you, Matt. Training, Bill. Yep. Matt, preparation. Very good. Determination, internal desire. I tell you. Consistency. Thank you, Annie. That's good. Desire to win. Fletcher, extreme clarity. Matt, fear of failure. Yep. Thank you for being honest, Matt. That's excellent. I want to tell you a little story here about a woman named Mary. Actually, when we first learn about Mary, she's not quite a woman. She's only 13 years old. And when she was 13 years old, she decided that she wanted to break the world record in the 200-meter butterfly race. So it's very interesting. When she made that decision, she made a decision to make some qualitative changes in her life. She didn't start training more. What she did is she started changing the quality of the work that she was doing. So quantity is all about the number or the amount. Quality is about modifying what you're actually doing instead of just doing more of it. And we all have tons of stuff to do. And so it's very important, if we're going to be able to achieve high performance, that we make qualitative changes, okay? So the two qualitative changes that Mary made after she decided she was going to break the world record, number one, she started showing up on time to her practices. Now, this is very interesting. This is not rocket science in any way. And one of the things I'd like to just emphasize to you, and I know you probably know this in your gut, is that excellence is easy if you understand how to be excellent and discipline yourself to pursue that excellence. Being on time is not difficult, okay? We started this webinar today exactly at 11 o'clock. Now, as you probably know, there was tons of stuff that I was doing behind the scenes getting ready for this webinar, but being on time is not hard if you do the preparation necessary. So she decided to be on time. And the second thing she did, she made a change in her technique. She decided to touch at the end of each length with two hands instead of one. Lazy swimmers touch with one hand, and then good swimmers, they touch with two hands. And that helps them to get a better kick off of the end of the pool, and it helps them to increase their times. So, or to speed up their times rather. She made those two qualitative changes. Now, in the environment that we're in, managing by outcomes is absolutely essential. I know some of you are challenged by not knowing exactly what your people are doing on a day-to-day basis, an hour-by-hour basis. You can't necessarily walk by their booth or their cubicle or their office and check in on them, just say hi. You can't necessarily lead by walking around like some of us like to do. So you've got to be able to focus on outcomes. But before you can get the outcomes that you need and that you should be managing by, you do need to focus on tasks. And so let me give you a definition of high performance. It's concentrating on the few tasks that, if done with excellence, will really make a difference in the results of your job and in the performance of the company. What is the most important outcome that you're expected to achieve in your position? Can you please type that into the box here for me for a moment? Justin, growth. Okay, thank you. Matthew, plan. Excellent. Bill, results. Craig, meet budgets. That's excellent. Very excellent. Matt, build relationships. Annie, client growth. Very good. Thank you. Hit project complete date. I'd like you to think about, in light of that top outcome, and just type into the box the most important task that leads to your most important outcome. So think about your most important outcome and what is your most important task that leads to that outcome. Craig, build a plan. Justin, consistency. Annie, research. Dan, meeting deadlines. Very good. Okay, your most important task that leads to your most important outcome. Matthew, written plan. Jesse, accountability. That's very interesting, Jesse. Once you've identified your most important outcome and your most important task that leads to that outcome, ask yourself this question. In what specific ways can I improve my performance of this task? Okay, and this is the way you want to work with your blended team. Have them identify those outcomes. Let them know, I'm going to be leading you by outcomes. I can't look over your shoulder all day, every day. I don't want to. I want to free you to achieve those outcomes, but let me help you. What are your most important tasks that lead to that outcome? What is the most important task that leads to the most important outcome? And then ask this question, in what specific ways can I improve my performance of this task? If you spend a one-on-one going through this with each one of your direct reports, this simple framework that I've just shared with you, it will have a tremendous positive impact on the performance of your team. And as you look at this question here, let me ask you, what's the most important word in this question? Justin, you nailed it. Matt, you did as well. It is the word specific. And this is the interesting thing. Notice what Mary did. This is what she said. People don't know how ordinary success is. Mary focused on showing up on time. Billions of people all over the world understand what it means to show up on time. And then she just changed a simple technique, a specific technique of touching with two hands instead of just one hand. In 1979, at age 14, she broke the world record 1 year after making that commitment. In the 1984 Olympics, she won 3 gold medals. Okay. This is Mary Mager, right? She's an Olympic champion. She understands that excellence is ordinary or easy if you understand how to achieve it. Now, let's get on to the next piece. You must improve the quality and impact of your communication, whether in person or remotely. So since the COVID hit, think about your team, think about the communication. What has changed? What has stayed the same? Just give me a little bit of feedback here. What has changed? What has stayed the same about communication since the COVID? Some remote workers are not working as well as before. It's hard to get them to work. It is, Matt. You know, some people, they don't thrive in this remote environment. They need that direct accountability. That means that you're going to have to work a little bit harder and be a little more diligent there. And it means that some people aren't necessarily a fit for that remote environment. Zach, workload has stayed the same, though the situations are more difficult. Okay. All right. So this is going to be very helpful. We're going to be talking through your communication. And I want you to be thinking about this in terms of both the virtual and the in-person, both in the field and the office. And I want you to keep in mind 3 simple pillars of communication that you have to be focused on. And that is encouragement, accountability, and recognition. So your org chart is your friend. It shouldn't just be some dull piece of paper that you go through because that's what you're supposed to do and then you stick in a drawer or a binder or on a hard drive somewhere. Your org chart should be a living, breathing document. I was working with one of my executive coaching clients yesterday, and we were going step by step through his org chart, rating each one of his team members so that he could focus in on how he could be a more effective leader and a coach for them. Okay. So in terms of communication, there's 3 messages that you want to consistently share with your team. Number 1 is encouragement. And the phrase that you want to remember is you can do it. Then there's accountability. And the question then is, did you do it? And like some of you have said, accountability is very, very challenging. And what I want you to be really considering here is how diligent you are in keeping people accountable. Out of sight is out of mind for many of us. And that's exactly why we need to be more consistent in our accountability with people if they're working in that remote environment. And then recognition. And again, out of sight, out of mind, it's easy to forget to recognize people, and you have to be very conscious about it. You're not necessarily going to be running into them in the hall all the time. And so as a result of that, you can't just look them in the eyes real quick as they're passing by and say, hey, thank you. So you're going to have to set aside some conscious time for that recognition. And to help you remember this framework, all you have to do is grab your ear and think about how ear is spelt. It's spelled E-A-R. E stands for encouragement. A stands for accountability. R stands for recognition. And this is how you can lead in terms of your communication. Get your org chart, ask yourself, who needs encouragement? Who needs accountability? Who needs recognition? Let me just get some feedback here. Raise your hand if you have at least one person that you lead who needs encouragement, accountability, or recognition. Okay, good. So you guys are in the right place. So the question then is, how do I encourage people? Well, before you can encourage someone and say to them, you can do it, you have to be able to delegate effectively. And this is particularly important in a remote environment. Okay, why don't we delegate? James, control, thank you. Matthew, lack of trust. Yep. Lisa, yes, you can do it faster, Lisa. I know you can. Dan, you don't trust people. Yep. You want it done right. Trust, no confidence in others. Yep. They do it wrong. Yes. Yes. Now think about this. If your people are doing it wrong, what does that say about them? What does that say about you? And whose responsibility is that ultimately? The reason why we don't delegate is a lot of us like to be the heroes. We're perfectionists. And like you say, we don't trust people. And so let me give you just a little framework here for delegation versus abdication. This is something that you can lay hold of both remotely and in person, and something that you can teach your people, okay? The first thing is clarity. When you're delegating to someone, you must make absolutely certain that they are clear on what they are supposed to be doing. This is particularly true if you are one of those forceful leaders who you give a task to someone, and because you're forceful and because they don't want to disappoint you, a lot of people are nodding their heads and saying, yes, 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 I understand. And then they go away and it becomes evident that they don't understand. So you must ask yourself, have I been clear in what I'm asking them to do? Second question you need to ask yourself is, are they capable? Have they been trained to do what they need to do? Have I taken the time to train them? I am irresponsible as a leader if I give tasks to people that they're going to fail at because they are not capable. And then the third thing you want to ask is, do they have the capacity? Do they have the capacity? The problem with many of us is that we have these star players that we like delegating things to, and we like pushing it off on them because they're the types of people who will always get things done until they can't anymore because you overcapacitate them. So you have to ask, do they have the capacity? If you're going to be able to delegate and then encourage someone that they can do it, you must be clear, they must be capable, and they must have the capacity. So in terms of encouraging people and delegating effectively, make sure that you're clearly communicating, make sure that you're doing the training necessary so that someone is capable, and make sure that they have the capacity. Now let's talk about this idea of accountability. And the idea of accountability is, did you do it? Why do you struggle with accountability? What's your biggest challenge, particularly with remote accountability? Getting updates on progress. Thank you, Matt. Follow through. Thank you, Justin. Ensuring the work is actually being done. Yep. Visibility of their actions. Understanding other people's workloads. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, it's very good, Zach. That's excellent. The tendency in a remote environment or a blended environment is to get your stuff done and just go about your business. And the levels of communication actually need to increase in a blended environment, particularly because your remote folks don't have the benefit of osmosis. They're not picking up on conversations around the office. They're not getting the feel of what the team is working on. And so you've really got to up level the amount of communication that you're doing. Accountability, whether remote or in person, it's a simple framework, but you've got to be able to use it. And you can get into this rhythm either on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or a monthly basis. Did you do it? These are the questions. If not, why not? How can I help? Did you do it? If not, why not? How can I help? And when you're asking that question, if not, why not, you're going to be listening. Have I been clear? Are they capable? Do they have the capacity? Listen for that, because you might be seeing someone not perform well, or someone who is struggling in their job, and they maybe have been really good performers in the past, but for whatever reason, their performance has dipped, whether it's the domestic pressures, whether they're just overcapacitated. You want to be compassionate with your people and ask them, why haven't you performed? What is the problem here? How can I help you? What do you need to succeed? And really take time to listen to the people. And so what you want to do is just write down, who needs accountability in my organization at the moment? Raise your hand if you can think of one person that you need to have an accountable conversation with in the next week. Okay, I got tons of people raising their hands here. That's excellent. Okay, now think about it. Make a commitment right now that you're going to have that accountable conversation. You're going to ask them, did you do it? If not, why not? How can I help? Okay, moving on from there. Let's talk about recognition. How does it feel when you get recognition? Motivational. Thank you, Jesse. Accomplished and appreciated, Matt. That's good. Fulfilling, James. Good. Validated. Yep. I'll tell you, Fletcher, that's really great. Proud. Thank you, Dan. Embarrassing. Yeah, Bill. That's interesting. That is embarrassing. Yeah. Zach, validated. Excellent. Okay. I'll tell you, I can think back to a time when I was working in a small entrepreneurial company. This is about 20 years ago. And it was an awesome company. We were out there, we were just kicking butt. We were having a great time. And one year I won the award as the marketer of the year. The only problem was that I was the only person in the marketing department. And I tell you that story because recognition is so vital to the performance of your organization, particularly in these blended environments. And so it's important that you actually get good at recognizing folks. Okay, so in order to recognize people well, you must be specific, you must be personal, and you must be consistent. Going back to what you were saying there, Bill, about it being embarrassing, some people find recognition, public recognition, very embarrassing. Others really enjoy it, but some don't enjoy it. And so when you're recognizing someone, I'd like you to think about specifically what it is that they've done that deserves recognition. I'd like you to make it personal, and I'd like it to be consistent. And one of the tips that you can do, I would recommend this. One of the things that you can do that may set you apart as a leader is to actually send people handwritten thank you notes. Handwritten thank you notes that personally recognize them for the work that they're doing. Okay, so as you look at your org chart, who needs recognition? Do you have someone who you can recognize in the next week where you can have that conversation that is specific and personal? Just raise your hand if you have a recognition conversation that you'll be able to have. Okay, excellent. Excellent. Good, good, good. So I'm glad this is just some very practical, simple things that we can be doing, but it's often things that we neglect either because we're busy or we're forgetful or we're just overwhelmed. Okay. So this is very, very important in terms of communicating with your leadership team, with the team that you run. You've got to be able to do the encouragement. You can do it. The accountability. Did you do it? And then the recognition. Okay. So now let's move on to the next part of the workshop. And this is understanding how to have difficult conversations without ruining relationships. The nature of reality is this: we go from order to disorder to chaos. Think back to the last challenging conversation that perhaps didn't go well. Why didn't it go well? Just type that into the box for me for a moment. Why did that difficult conversation not go well? I was defensive. Thank you, Matt. The approach, Bill, this is excellent. Bill, this is exactly why we're talking about this, because the approach to conversations really makes a difference in the discussions. Why was it a difficult conversation? Lisa, you were impatient. I know exactly how you feel, Lisa. And then Matt, that's interesting. You were not listening. Vance, because you were pissed off. I know exactly how you feel, Vance. That's interesting, Matt. I appreciate that openness. You lost your temper. It's rare for you, but it killed the conversation. Yes. Thank you, guys. This is really caught off guard. Yeah, Fletcher, I tell you, that happens. Too aggressive. Okay, guys, this is awesome. Now, think about the last conversation that was successful. Why was it successful? Why did it go well? Just give me some feedback there on why it went well. The approach. Yeah, Bill, that's interesting. Because you said the approach was why it went badly, and now you say the approach is why you went well. Well planned. Justin, you nailed it there. Respectful, open, and honest. That's very good. Thank you, Jason. You were listening and asking questions. That's great, Matt. That's really great. Okay, awesome. Now, the thing about it is that conflict comes in conversation. We all know that. And here's another thing here. And I was chatting with one of my clients yesterday about this. There are no guarantees in conversations. There's only possibilities. And that's so very important. And I just want to go back to something that Matthew said here. The best conversations are when I let other people get it all out, even if it's repetitive or boring for me. Let them be heard so they'll listen to me. That is excellent, Matt. That is really, really good. Thank you for that. And I was chatting with this guy, and we were talking about a specific conversation that he needed to have. And it was kind of a scary one for him because it was with someone that he reported to. And he was like, man, I don't want to talk to this guy because if I do, he's just going to blow me off. And this is the thing about difficult conversations. There are no guarantees. You can prepare perfectly for it. You can execute the conversation. You can have the best intentions. There are no guarantees. There are only possibilities. But nevertheless, we have to have the conversations because the conversations that we have are the substance of the relationships we have. Without conversations, we have no relationships. And relationships are what drive every single successful construction company. So I'd like you to think about a beach ball here for a moment and imagine a really big beach ball. In other words, a beach ball that's as big as your house. And you're standing on one segment of the beach ball. And let's say you're standing on the blue segment of the beach ball. And keep in mind that this beach ball is huge. And you're going to look around you. What color is the beach ball to you? If you're standing on this massive beach ball and on the blue segment, what color is the beach ball? It's blue. Now think about it. If someone else is standing on the yellow segment, what color is it to them? It's yellow. Now, that is the essence of why conflict occurs in many situations. Think about that beach ball as a project that you're working on at the moment. To you, the answer to the issue is blue. To the other person, it's yellow. And to the third party, it's orange. And so you've always got to ask yourself, what color are you standing on? And what I'd like to give you here is just 7 simple conversational principles that you can lay hold of when you're having difficult conversations. And so the first one that you have to do is to interrogate reality. If you're going to have successful conversations, you may hear one piece of information. It sparks an emotional reaction within you. And when you get that emotion, that may lead to you losing your cool or having a bad conversation. You've got to stop and be willing to interrogate reality. That's the first thing that you have to do. Then what you have to do is drop the mask. Come out from behind yourself and into the conversation and make it real. So let me ask you here, what's one specific way that you can drop the mask when you're having a difficult conversation? Eye contact. That's excellent. Thank you, Bill. I've been in your shoes. Yes. Being vulnerable with your feelings. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Now, think about the next principle here. Give your full attention. So be in the conversation and nowhere else. Now, right now, we've got a bunch of people on the call. Think about this. How many of you are paying 100% attention? Great. I appreciate that. Many of you are raising your hands. I know not everybody has. Now, I don't say that to be mean to the people who aren't paying attention, but we are addicted to distractions. And one of the ways that will hinder you in your leadership and hinder you in having conversations is by not giving your full attention. So give your full attention. The next one is to tackle your toughest challenge today. Think about it. When you get up in the morning, you think about all the things that you need to do. You think about all the challenges that you're going to be facing. Let me encourage you. Great leaders tackle their toughest one right away. Don't avoid that conversation. Think about a difficult conversation that you need to have in the next 24 to 48 hours and make the commitment to have that conversation. Now, remember earlier in the meeting, I was going to share with you the $1 million idea, and here comes the $1 million idea. So listen up. This is the $1 million idea. It is ask just one more question. And I'll tell you why it's $1 million idea. I was teaching one of my clients this topic in a leadership class a number of years ago, and I shared with them these 7 principles. And the idea of asking just one more question is really, really important. So the month after I shared with them this particular principle, I asked them, did anyone use and apply these 7 principles? One of the project managers shot up his hand and he said, I asked just one more question. So I asked the project manager, tell me more about that. He said, I was on the phone to the GC and I asked the GC, are you ready for my crew to come out to the job site? So what do you think the GC said when the PM of the subcontractor asked, are you ready for us? Give me some feedback here, guys. Yes, that's right, exactly. The GC said yes. Okay, now, the project manager then thought to himself, but I kind of know this GC. So he decided to ask just one more question. And the question was really simple. Are you really ready? And the GC said, nah, we're not really ready for you. And then we were in this meeting, and I was asking this question of the PM, and one of the owners of the company was in the meeting as well. And he shot up his hand and he said, that saved us $15,000 right there. Because to fire the engines and send out a crew to the job site costs the company 15 grand. So by asking just one more question, he saved the organization $15,000. Just one project manager. Now think about if you extrapolate that over the lifetime of your career, whether you're in project management or in the field or in estimating, if you get into the habit of asking just one more question, when you have the instinct that either someone's not being clear or something's not right, it can save you millions of dollars. So ask just one more question. Okay, then you've got to be responsible for your emotional wake. And what that means is that if you come across in a hard way or an intense way with people, whether you're right or wrong, understand that you're going to have an impact on people. And the words that you speak are so powerful, particularly as a leader. Think about back when you were a kid and just one sentence that your parents has said to you that is stuck in your mind for your entire life. You have to be responsible for your emotional wake. And then you have to let the silence do the heavy lifting. Many of us talk too much, and we have to let the silence do the heavy lifting. So with those 7 things in mind, I'd like you just to pick one to use and apply in having those conversations with your team, whether remotely or in person. So to break this cycle of order, disorder, and chaos, the way you do that is by having difficult conversations. Let's move on to the last part of the session. In February, most of us were in in-person meetings most of the time. Today, we're in a blended environment. And the ideal is that we can have these meetings where we're talking about the bidding, the planning, the building, the billing. But the challenge is that there's so many unknowns, so many uncertainties surrounding the project. And then with the COVID, there's just so much challenge, which it results in delays, in distancing, and in drain. And there's just tons of problems, okay? So with that in mind, running a remote meeting effectively or a blended meeting effectively is really, really important. You have to be able to identify your problems. You have to be able to get ideas to solve those problems, and you have to be able to get into action. And so right now, I'm going to give you a clear, repeatable process. And I tell you, This process, if you learn and apply it, is going to transform the way you run meetings, because it's going to get everyone's buy-in and it's going to help you to get into action. And when you put those things together, you'll be able to get to some success. So what I'd like you to do real quick is list your top 3 current problems. And then I'd like you just to pick your number 1 problem at the moment. It's very important that you keep that top problem in mind, whether it's a personal one, whether it's a team one, just keep that top problem in mind as we go through this process. As you think about that problem, you know what? The truth hurts. The truth hurts. But burying your head in the sand is not a strategy. You understand that. Sucking it up, just working harder, is not a strategy either. And lying about it is not a strategy either. All progress begins by telling the truth. And so think about that problem that you have. The first thing you need to do is you need to gather the team. You need to take leadership in this situation, gather the team, and get yourself prepared for the meeting. Make sure you have the data that you need. Make sure you're not just coming in and winging it, but make sure that you spend time to prepare. And when you're gathering the team, understand that everyone's on a different part of the beach ball, as we talked about earlier. And as you're coming together for the meeting, prepare yourself. Don't allow the rage monster to get you. Don't allow the pressure to overwhelm you. Don't allow your fears to drive you. Okay, and that's why it's important that you have a process to help you to overcome those emotions that we all experience. Commit to listening. Commit to silence. Commit to an open mind. These are all vital. And then lay some ground rules for the meeting. Number 1, everybody participates. Okay? I would insist in a remote meeting that people do not have multiple screens open, and that they commit at the beginning of each meeting to raise their phone up to the screens like this, and to physically, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to throw my phone onto my chair on the other side of my office. Have everybody do this. Throw their phone away. Also, there's no dismissing of ideas, and everybody participates. All right, so you've got to address the problems, and then you've got to gather ideas. And so in order to gather ideas, you must frame the problem well, and then you have to get into green light thinking, and then you have to prioritize the ideas. So let's talk about problem framing. Let me give you some examples. In what specific ways can we ensure our employee safety? In what specific ways can we improve our cash flow? In what specific ways can we maintain client relationships? So you see the framework here, right? You start with the phrase, in what specific ways can we, and then you insert the problem at the end. The most important word here is specific. That's the most important, because the more specific you are, the more actionable you can be. Let me give you an example. One of my clients had a problem, quality in the field. In what specific ways can we improve quality in the field in the next 90 days? They framed it clearly, and then they began to gather some ideas. Okay, and that's where green light thinking comes in. So what you want to do is you want to give people 2 minutes to come up with as many ideas as they can to the question, in what specific ways can we improve quality in the field in the next 90 days? And just have everyone write by themselves, think by themselves. Don't put it out to the group right away, but ask them individually. And if beforehand you need to have them do some prep on it, that's okay. But before we were doing these meetings virtually, in person, we put them on a whiteboard with some Sharpies. But now everyone's kind of running blind in many different ways. But the advantage of anonymity is people can share ideas without perhaps being mocked. They might be a little more free sharing ideas. But what you want to be able to do is, once they've thought for 2 minutes about the ideas that they have for addressing the issue, is gather their top 2 ideas and then have someone specifically write them down. So if you're running a Zoom meeting, the best thing to do is to have someone sitting next to you or in another office doing all the note taking for you and making sure that they're following and tracking what everyone is saying. But have them chat into the box their top 2 ideas and make sure that they're as specific as possible, and make sure nobody's hiding, but everyone is getting involved. Okay? That's fundamental. Now, with that green light thinking, you can have people, like I said, have someone take notes and make a list of the ideas. And so this is what it would look like. You get a list of ideas just like this. Okay, 13 ideas, 14 ideas they came up with as a result of that question, in what specific ways can we improve quality in the field? Okay, so a lot of good specific ideas. Actually, they came up with 15. And what you notice about this list is that there's a ton of ideas and it's really difficult to implement. So what they did then is they narrowed those ideas down. And the way you do that is by distributing votes to everyone in the meeting. And you ask them to pick 5 of the 15 ideas. Or if you only have 9 ideas, you pick 3 of the ideas. But you only get 5. Now, why is it important, do you think, to only pick 5? 5 of the 15, even if all the ideas are really good. Exactly, Craig. You can't do them all. Exactly. Lack of focus. Thank you, James. You can only focus on 1 to 3 things at once. Thank you, Matthew. Achieve more with less. Thank you, Bill. You don't want to overwhelm. Good. You guys all get the picture. And so what you do is you distribute 5 votes to each person in the meeting and ask them to pick only 5 of the 15 ideas and have them chat that into the box. And it's a miraculous thing because as a result of that, you'll surface anywhere from 2 to 4 ideas that come to the top. And they had 2 ideas, walking jobs more frequently and getting little e in the field, who is a quality control person. Those got 9 votes. And so those are their top 2 ideas out of the 15. Okay. And so that's how you identify your most valuable idea. And so for them, it was getting little e in the field and walking jobs more frequently. Now, so you take that most valuable idea, you've got all these good vibes, but then you get nothing done. And that's why you've got to get into action. So here's how the action works. You get a rally cry, you get areas of fierce focus, and then you get critical numbers that drive your rally cry. Okay? Now, a rally cry is really simple. It's singular, it's understandable, it's compelling. It's when you wake up at 3:30 in the morning and someone asks you, what's the most important thing that you're working on? You just tell them directly. You know exactly what that is. So take your most valuable idea and turn that into your rally cry. Then once you have a rally cry, you get your areas of fierce focus. And these are the big areas of activity or execution that you focus on in order to achieve the rally cry. And then you get critical numbers that tell you whether you're driving your areas of fierce focus that are helping you to achieve your rally cry. Okay? And so you may not have time to do this, or at least you think you don't. But if you don't, you're going to have problems, and those problems aren't going away. And so this is what it looks like on a page. You get your rally cry at the top, you get your areas of fierce focus, and then you get your critical numbers. Okay? And as a result of that, you get something like this. Kill bad jobs. That's a rally cry one of my clients once had. And these are the areas of fierce focus. Identify scope, estimate cost to complete, and production planning. And these are the critical numbers. Scope by 9:30, cost to complete by 10:14, draft production by 10:14. You see this? It's a 1-page plan to help them to overcome their challenges. And whether virtually or in person, you can develop these 1-page plans. So as you go on here, the great thing about it is that if you make a decision, you can expect full support. And if you're wrong, you just get back to the discussion that you're in, get to decisions, and expect full support. And this is how you go through the process of making decisions and leading your team, whether remotely or in person. The thing about remote work is you need to be more diligent to check in with them. So perhaps you need to go from weekly check-ins to daily check-ins on how they're proceeding and achieving that rally cry. Okay? All right. So once you've got the ideas and once you've got into action, you identify the problems, you gather ideas, then you get into action. So now it's time for you to get into action. A good plan violently executed today is far better than a perfect plan tomorrow. So thinking about everything that you learned today, what's one thing that you're going to do as a result of what you've learned? Prioritize the focus. Excellent. Create your plan. Thank you, Matthew. What's one thing that you're going to do? Whether having a difficult conversation, whether encouraging people, prioritization, tackle a problem. Thank you, Sean. Are you going to work on the dashboard? Planning meetings with team to improve meetings. Very good. Thank you, Matthew. Focus on one person who needs help. Matt, that is excellent. I tell you, if you just walk away today with one person that you're going to encourage or hold accountable or recognize, that is time well spent. And as you think about it, as you reflect on your leadership, here's a good quote from the Lord of the Rings. I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf. and so do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. We didn't ask for these circumstances. They came upon us, and now we're here deciding what we're going to do with our circumstances. And that's what you have to do as a leader, and that's what you have to help your people to do as well.